All right, if you are watching this video, then you should have read Loose Tooth yesterday in guided reading. So if you did not read that book, make sure you go back and click on the correct link, okay? All right, so those of you that read that story, it was about a little boy who was going to lose his tooth, and he was kind of imagining all the different scenarios that could happen, and you got to meet and learn about one of the characters, the boy in the story. And so that's going to be our comprehension work today. We're going to talk about characters, and characters are just what the story is about, who the story is about. And sometimes you have one main character, one person that's kind of throughout the whole story. Sometimes you could have several main characters. And so we're going to talk about one main character today. And so before I give you your assignment, I want you to do this chart with me, okay? So I have kind of written down main character, and we're going to talk together as like me and you. I'm going to teach you how to do this using the main character of our Bible story this week. So our main character of our Bible story this week, we're going to put Saul / Paul, okay? Because down here, we're going to need to write 3 words or phrases to describe this character. So we're going to need to tell 3 things to describe our main character. And in our Bible story this week, Paul, Saul, and Paul were the main character that we learned about, okay? So one thing when I think about them that I think about is I think that Saul used to not like Christians, okay? So I'm going to write here, Saul did not like Christians. And that was something that we learned about him in our first day's Bible story. We learned that Saul really did not like them. We even learned that he was there with Stephen when we learned about Stephen earlier in the year. Okay, so Saul did not like Christians. Another thing that we could use to describe Paul was that Paul lost his sight for 3 days. So we learned that when he was on the road to Damascus, that he had an encounter with Jesus and got on the road, and when he did, he lost his sight for 3 days, and during those 3 days he didn't eat. He just prayed. This board is going to fall. There, I think I've got it secure. Okay, so he lost his sight, and during that time he didn't eat. He just prayed and he talked to God. And we talked about how Ananias was the one that was sent to him. And so Paul lost his sight for 3 days. That's another thing about him. And then we learned that Paul was courageous. And we learned that because Paul went through some hard stuff to tell people about Jesus. Like, Paul's life was not easy once he made a decision to follow Jesus. Kennedy was even reading a story about him today where he picked up some wood and there was a snake in there and it bit him. And the people thought he was scary because he got bit by a snake. Okay, so we learn about Saul and Paul, that Saul did not like Christians. Paul lost his sight for 3 days, and Paul was courageous. He was brave. He loved Jesus and he trusted him. So those are 3 things about him, about Saul, Paul. So you're going to talk about the main character in the story today. So I want you to do your sheet kind of like this. Okay, so here's the book that you read. Here's what I want your sheet to look like. I just want you to pause this in a minute, and I want you to copy. You don't have to copy like this part. You don't have to copy that. Just write main character and then draw a line and write who the main character was in the story Loose Tooth. And then I want you to write the numbers 1, 2, 3, and I want you to tell me 3 things about him. 3 things that you learn about the boy in the story. Okay? And there are probably more than 3, but you just have to tell me 3, okay? Once you finish that, I want you to take a picture of it and submit to me that you understand how to describe a character, okay? You could describe what he does, you could describe what he looks like, you could describe things that he says, but you're just going to tell me more about his character. All right? Thanks, boys and girls.